Hello, welcome back to my channel. Please subscribe to my channel, like my videos, and please check out my channel for other updates. So the last update about Taste of Fate. Lakshmi saves Prachi's life from Bhavinder's attack, and this means that Aliyah and Rhea's evil plans failed again as Prachi is being saved from their attack. Let's continue. Shahana asks Prachi to show both her hands. Prachi says she is fine, nothing has happened to her. Shahana says, I want to make sure that the chemical powder is not falling on your hands. Prachi says anyone can listen. Shahana says let it be and tells her that she is sure that Rhea has planned this chemical attack on her. Prachi doesn't agree with Shahana and she says that Rhea cannot do this as criminal-minded people do such a thing, and she thinks that Bhavinder did this in anger as Lakshmi was with her all the time. Shahana says you trust Rhea whenever a matter comes. Prachi says I trust my blood. Rhea and I are the same mother's children and we have some values from birth. Shahana asks why was Ravan bad and why Vibshan was good, who are born to the same mother. She says if anything had happened to your face or body, now just the grass was burnt. Grandma comes there and overhears them and she gets shocked. Prachi says she is fine. Shahana tells Grandma about the attack on Prachi. Grandma says you got bad eye and you shall wear the Rashka Kavash. Prachi says she is fine. Grandma goes. Prachi asks Shahana not to tell Grandma or anyone about Rhea without proofs. She says I am okay and asks her not to get angry as her nose looks strange in anger. A guy comes to meet the servant of the house and asks her. He says we shall do something big and earn money. They overhear Rhea and Aliyah talking about Ranbir. Rhea sees the gloves outside the house and comes outside. They ask the servant Pretty about the guy. The guy says he is Pretty's boyfriend and his name is Nick and he gives his visiting card to them. He says he will throw the gloves out. Aliyah asks him not to act smart and leave. He leaves. Grandma comes to the in-house temple and prays to God for Prachi's safety. Shahana comes there and prays for Prachi. Grandma asks Shahana, why did you come here? Shahana says she have come to take blessings and pray for Prachi. Grandma says I have come here to take this thread and pray to God to make it a protective shield for Prachi. Ranbir hears them. Grandma says she is sure that God will protect Prachi, just like Lakshmi protected her this time. She finds the painting falling down and asks Shahana to hang it back. Ranbir comes to Grandma and asks what happened to Prachi. Grandma says, didn't you know? She says someone tried to apply color to Prachi and the color fell on the grass and it burnt. She says Lakshmi saved her this time and says she is worried for Prachi. Ranbir gets worried and goes to Prachi. He asks if she is fine. Prachi says she is fine and asks what do you want? Ranbir checks her aunt. Prachi asks him to stay away from her. Ranbir says I came to see if you are fine. Prachi asks why do you come here to trouble me? Ranbir says you were attacked and you didn't tell me. Prachi asks if Ranbir is a police or a doctor and why is he concerned for her or love her. Ranbir asks why do you make me angry and tells her that he wants to be a person whom she can trust and respect. Prachi says I cannot trust you. Ranbir asks why. Prachi says we get life one time and feels love one time and get betrayed too one time. Prachi says to Ranbir that I have done a mistake by trusting you once and I cannot do it again. Ranbir says, did I tell you that I fell in love with you each day? And says, I came to know if you are fine. Prachi says, just go. Ranbir asks, why do you want to kill our love? Prachi says to Ranbir that your love was never truthful. Ranbir says it was truthful as the hatred in your eyes. Prachi says it is truthful to someone else and not me. Ranbir asks, what do you mean? And asks her to be honest. Prachi says you call me as your wife in daytime and you spend the night with someone else on her bed and behaves as if it is normal. Ranbir says I am behaving normally as I did not do anything. Prachi says Rhea was with you and she had kept hand on you and you were not wearing anything. Ranbir says I am not like that. Prachi says didn't you think once that I will see you and my heart will break seeing it? Ranbir says I didn't do anything. Prachi says you did and you broke my trust. Ranbir swears. Prachi says you and Rhea are both drunk. Ranbir says I was drunk, but not Rhea. Prachi asks him to just go. Ranbir says I am going far away from you and he goes. He recalls Prachi's words and he gets angry. He says she doesn't want to hear me and thinks that I have done wrong. Ranbir says Prachi is ruining our relationship with me. He throws the vases on the floor and says if Prachi is not in my life, then there's nothing in my life. Shahana comes there and asks what is he doing. She asks him if he had gone mad. Ranbir asks her not to be concerned for him and says you would have listened to me and trusted me. He says, you outlined yourself and outcasted me. He says, don't show your concern now. Shahana tells Ranbir that Prachi is important for me than you. She tells him that she is with Prachi. Ranbir says she has said right, but wrong blame is a big thing. Shahana goes to Prachi. Aliyah asks Rhea not to walk. Rhea says, I cannot take that Prachi anymore, and says my blood boils seeing her. She behaves as if she is innocent and she doesn't know anything. Rhea says, I know Prachi is the mastermind that has ruined my life and she has snatched my mom, my dad and Ranbir. She says, I am talking about 20 years ago when she was born 1 minute before me. She says she was born before me and says when mom and dad saw her, their happiness must be much, and when they saw me later, they wouldn't have gotten so much happy. Rhea says Prachi might have gone to mom's lab first and she was in her life. Aliyah says you were with your dad and he gave you so much love. Rhea says nobody can take mom's place and says a thirsty person is thirsty even if he is made to drink water. Rhea tells Aliyah that Mira aunt loved her so much and gave me upbringing like a mother, but she couldn't give me love like a mom. She says when mom returned, she hugged me like I was born at that time. She says I felt it, but Prachi was born 1 minute before me and showed her right and mom loved her more than me. She says Prachi snatched my dad from me too. Rhea says when Prachi and Ranbir got married in the temple, mom was with her. She says my husband regards Prachi as his wife and loves her. She says he made fun of our marriage. We slept together, but Ranbir behaves as if our marriage is a joke. She says I'm going crazy and I don't know what to do. Rhea says the wedding night drama is not working and Ranbir is behaving as if it did not happen. They hear Ranbir throwing things around. Aliyah and Rhea comes out. Aliyah asks what happened. Ranbir says what is the big deal? What is broken will be brought again. Rhea asks why is Ranbir angry? Ranbir says why are you asking your aunt, and asks Aliyah to go out as he wants to talk to Rhea. He closes the door and asks Rhea if I did not tell you how much I love Prachi on mom and dad's anniversary. Rhea says I remember. Ranbir says to Rhea that if you remember, then why did you sleep with me? And says you did not go as you wanted to celebrate the wedding night with me. He says you wanted this. Rhea cries and says how do I explain it? She says you were drunk, but you were in your senses. She acted and says I asked you to leave me, and then I wanted to go, and I was going away from the room, but you put me on the bed. Ranbir is shocked. Rhea tells Ranbir that she was going out of the room, but Ranbir pulled her on the bed. Ranbir recalls pulling Prachi closer to him for a kiss. Rhea says I am not like this, and I cannot do this. He says I accept that I was drunk, but I cannot force you. It is not true. Rhea acted to cry and says someone wants me to get into depression and end my life with my aunt, and says this situation was created so that you can force yourself on me, and that is why your drink might be spiked. Ranbir says I haven't done anything intentionally. I wanted to prove this to Prachi and tells her that it is not our mistake, but the mistake of the person who spiked my drink. Ranbir opens the door and finds Aliyah standing there. He goes. Aliyah comes to the room. Rhea smiles seeing her. Shahana says that Ranbir and Prachi are not happy with each other and will be happy if they are happy. She tells Grandma that she is scared that they might end their relationship in anger. Grandma asks Shahana not to say that. Shahana asks what to do to calm down their anger. Grandma says they don't want to see each other's face. Shahana asks what to do. Grandma asks her to search for the truth and says why will Ranbir sleep in Rhea's room and why will he come out from there? Shahana says Prachi is angry as she feels that Ranbir slept with Rhea and says if the truth comes out that Ranbir did not sleep with Rhea, then everything will be fine. Shahana says she will find out the truth and then everything will be fine. Aliyah asks Rhea if Ranbir believed her. Rhea says I didn't plan anything and says Ranbir was questioning her about their wedding night and asked me how can I let her become her husband, and he told her clearly that he loves Prachi. Aliyah asks Rhea that what did she reply to Ranbir then. Rhea says Ranbir was questioning me, that why did I not stop him as he lost Prachi. She says my mind was making excuses by itself and I cried a lot. She says I told him that I tried to stop him and I was going, but you put me on the bed. She laughs and says Ranbir was angry at first and then he was feeling ashamed and guilty later. Aliyah says thank God, how you make a film and says you have become scary. She says this skill that you have developed yourself. Rhea says I made Ranbir stand in the witness box and then he himself blamed himself. She says everything will go on right and says, I thought this plan is a failure, but it is very effective and all my problems would end soon. Aliyah says it was our idea. Rhea says I will close all the ways of Ranbir and one way would only be open, which will lead him to me. She says she will separate Prachi and Ranbir and she will make them go far away. Aliyah says that day will come. Ranbir recalls Prachi confronting him for giving a ride to Rhea, and then Rhea's side of the story. He thinks I am not that kind of a person and thinks what happened that day. He thinks of imagining Prachi and he thinks of how did I get drunk and says I have moved all the bank from there. Then who made dad and me drunk? Ranbir tries to recall and he thinks that Prachi should search for the person who made me drunk. For her, I am a bad person. He thinks I have to prove that I am not a bad person and I will know what happened that day. He thinks I will not be at peace until then. Prachi opens the door and sees Ranbir standing. Ranbir thinks I told her so much and I should say sorry to her. Prachi also thinks of saying sorry to Ranbir. They walk towards each other. A song plays in the background. They go past each other without saying sorry to each other. They record their happy moment of the party. Aliyah tells Rhea that the day can come tomorrow and asks Rhea to work on her mind more to separate Prachi and Ranbir. Shahana thinks of what to do today and from where to start. Rhea asks what to do. Shahana thinks to keep an eye on Rhea. Rhea asks Aliyah to tell her what she thought. Aliyah asks her to think. Rhea says I am getting a bit and says we have done a big work and we shall develop hatred between them, but I don't know how to do it. Aliyah says we can get it done and asks if you have thought that Ranbir's one drink will bring him on your bed. Aliyah says one drink can separate two lovers and then Rhea says if we can use this idea again and says nobody can do anything after we made Ranbir drink. Aliyah senses someone is outside and comes out with Rhea. She asks Shahana if Prachi sent her to hear them. Shahana says I thought to ask you about the tea or cold drink. She says I will send it. Aliyah says okay, send it. Rhea gets angry. Aliyah asks her not to worry due to Shahana and enjoy her face with Ranbir. Ranbir comes to the kitchen and asks the servant if they celebrated early. The servant says that they celebrated early. Ranbir asks the servant who brought bank in the house. The servant asks Ranbir to ask Aliyah and says you got drunk after drinking tandai from her hand. Ranbir says okay, I will ask her and ask him not to tell anyone. The other servant looks at Ranbir as he doubts Aliyah. Prachi tells Shahana that her fan is not working. Shahana asks her to switch on the AC. Prachi says the AC went for hair filling. Shahana asks her to sleep in her room. Prachi refuses. Ranbir says if Prachi wants, then she can sleep in my room. Prachi says someone is habitual to sleeping in other people's room. Ranbir says I will be awake all night and I will sleep in the study room tonight. They talk indirectly. Prachi refuses to sleep in his room. Shahana says I am going to sleep in Grandma's room. Ranbir goes. Prachi feels sweating and thinks to go to Ranbir's room and thinks that the doctor asks her to have a good sleep. She goes. Ranbir comes to the room and rests on the bed. He thinks that my phone was in the washroom. Prachi comes there. Ranbir stops in the washroom, seeing her coming there. Prachi closes the door and thinks that thank God it is cold here. She thinks to wake up early and go to her room. She set the alarm for 5 a.m. and sleeps on the bed. Ranbir looks at Prachi from the washroom door. A song plays in the background. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like my videos, share it, and please subscribe to my channel for more updates. Thank you.